What's up guys, welcome back to Garvian Reacts, where we check out music related content including albums and singles. Today we have another album review for you guys. I made a post a couple weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago actually, asking which album would you rather me review first, between Indigo and the Before the Party mixtape, both by Chris Brown. I think Indigo won by like a 70% margin, well a 40% margin, it was 70-30. I've done this before for one Chris Brown album thus far. It was a Heartbreak and a Full Moon. So if you haven't checked out my review for that, I'll link it down below. Honorable mention number one. This track is so amazing. It's a ballad for starters. Any ballad from Chris already gets like a sign of approval from me. So it's a piano ballad, so it's like 4 chords. It's like a, then it has like this harp. So it's an amazing 4-chord loop with those strings attached to it. It creates such a emotional or endearing track per se. So yeah, was one of Chris's strongest and most intimate tracks on the album. It's not in the top 10, but an honorable mention seems pretty fair. It's one of his most vulnerable. Some of the layering and harmony, especially on the hook where he says, "It's all on me." Yeah, some of the best on the entire project. So. Running to me, baby, while you play, yeah, you know. Give me that feeling, cruising nigga later. All the spring dripping down. And don't you forget it, don't you forget it. Give me that feeling, cruising nigga later. You'll be the one I take my time on. Might be the one I buy a time on. Okay, so that was Burgundy. It's honorable mention number 2. Really solid track. Produced by O.G. Parker, which surprisingly he does play to Chris's strengths on this album. It's not generic, it's very intimate. It's also another ballad. Great production, some great vocals, good lyricism, plays into the whole idea of colors emitting emotions throughout the entire project, so I like that from Burgundy. Pretty solid track. This is a wild card, but I kind of really like this song. There's just something really vibey about this one. Right, in the summer, speedboat out in the land down under. We gon' ride through the rain, through the thunder. You see what it is with them ladies on. You just admit you got that door. Walking my lane for me back and forth. Wanna show you up and telling everyone I know. Yeah, it's my baby, and I know that my bitch cold. Sorry you gorgeous, you're beautiful. And these designer clothes, it's the end of cut it for you. Somewhere in the sky, got a preview. Everything's so pretty, man, we enjoy. Everything is Gucci that you do. So everything free and free, yeah. Everything's so pretty, yeah. The track works. Don't Check on Me is my number 10 on Indigo. Let's go. the ball, having a night on the town. Life at a party, pouring shots at the brown. And you see me from the street, how I don't turn around. What you say, how did you keep going? If I told your family that you didn't mean nothing, if you posted about it and I didn't even comment, if the songs weren't true, would you still feel something? Would you still come looking for me? Oh, don't go reaching out. Cause you can't have everything. Your head and your heart won't feel the same. Even if it feels like it every time. Don't check on me if we're not together. And it's probably for a reason. Every heartbreak has its season. In and out, wait, summer in June. Maybe crushing my but don't worry about me, no. My heart is breaking one piece and it's skipped a beat, no. Feeling rested up, I ain't missing sleep, no. Don't take it personal if I can't reply now. I'm dancing cause I wanna be the reach now. Don't shed no more tears. Won't gain no empathy from me in the upcoming years. Oh, I don't need your pity. Don't check on me. Only fully acoustic track on that entire project, so it very much stands out in its production. Great vocals from both Chris and Justin Bieber, and Ink really tops it off with the songwriting and the falsetto harmonies over top of Chris throughout his verses. So yeah, it makes for a great build and it's very much an emotional ride. I will say, vocal wise, I do prefer Justin's falsetto flips in his verse compared to Chris. I've noticed that when Chris does ballads, he has this thing where he doesn't take breaths, so the track just kind of goes on. Just like Don't Judge Me, like Don't Judge Me has the pre-chorus. Don't Judge Me is actually pretty hard to sing because it just continues. It's like it's one continuous loop of words. No, I don't see it often, and I probably should have told you I heard this back. I know, and I probably shouldn't want this so bad. It's weighing on me. Doing it, wake up in the morning. Can't let her do what we did in this bed. And I don't wanna feel the way I do, but I like it. Look at all these sparks flying, but I'm still indecisive. And she want me to break it, but I shouldn't be doing it. Okay, so that was Undecided. And things I loved about this track was the Shani sample of I Love Your Smile that tops it off. But differently, I like the fact that this track does not have any 808, so it's kind of like a standard 2000s track where the beat pretty much sounds organic as opposed to it being produced overtly like in a studio and so forth. So I love that. I like the infectious vocal line from Chris in this track, particularly when he gets to the "No, no, baby, I'm afraid of your love." It just feels atmospheric and very wholesome. Also, I like the subject matter of him saying there are uncertainties as to where this relationship goes from here on out. And it's not that I don't want to be here, but it's just that there's a fear attached to it. Undecided is a very strong song. With my only issue about this song is the line about you already know being his weakness. I just thought it was a throwaway line and it didn't necessarily need to be in this track. Moving on, we're going to number 9. Number 9 might actually surprise you. I think from the general public, this is their favorite song off the album. Hey, trips that you plan for the next whole week. That's too long for a nigga so cheap. And your flex so D, your sex so D. You got it, girl, you got it. Hey, you got it, girl, you got it. Yeah, pretty little thing, you got a bag and now you wildin'. You just took it off the line, no mileage. Waiting, hitting you the DM looking violent. Talking while you come around and now they sliding. Through the coupe at 17, no guidance. You be staying low, but you know what the price is. Ain't never got you know it being modest. Poppin' shipping only cause you know you poppin'. Yeah. You got it, girl, you got it. Hey. You got it, girl, you got it. Little baby in a bag and I'm working. No 9 to 5, put the work in. Stars and all, I love them all. To me, you're perfect. Baby girl, you got it, girl. You got it, girl. You got it, girl. You got it, girl. Let me do my little dance. I don't wanna play no games, play no games. Fuck around, get you my last name. Know you tired of the same damn thing. That's okay, 'cause baby, you got it, girl. You got it. You got it, girl. You got it. You the only one I'm tryna make love to. Picking and choosing, they ain't really love you. Running game, using all your stupid exes, they gon' call again. Tell them that a real nigga stepping in. Don't let them niggas try you, test your patience. Tell them that it's over, ain't no debate. All you need is me playing on your playlist. You ain't gotta be frustrated. I don't wanna play no games, play no games. Fuck around, get you my last name. Know you tired of the same damn thing. That's okay, 'cause baby, you. So that was No Guidance, and it comes in at number 8 for me. Amazing track. It's probably a 10 out of 10 track if I'm being completely honest. But I don't think I want to put it any higher because I think some other tracks on there are totally underrated. But yeah, Chris and Drake reunited, doing their thing. It's an amazing R&B crossover track. Drake's rap verse at the end with a breakdown section. Overall, culturally, it's an amazing moment for music. These two coming together. So yeah, all in all, it's a great song. Like porcelain, like ocean waves, your mind's amazing. I cannot be your everything when we still got it. Up your patience, you can't keep wasting all your days on wondering why. Just don't get it. I just came to calm the troubled waters down to be alive. I swear I got you. You can't keep wasting all your days wondering why. Just don't get it. Production wise, this track is amazing. It's like 4 chords, but it's just so bouncy and groovy. It's a perfect R&B track. Vocally, Chris does superbly on this, and then lyrically, it's really Chris comparing the turmoils of a relationship to that of like strong weather when you're at sea. So hence the term troubled waters, and he wants to be the one to calm the troubled waters down. He even goes further into the track to say that he'll be her lifeguard and so forth. So you get the idea. It feels like he can be the one to fill that void for her. So it's really a track of him picking up a girl who's already spoken for, but I think it's done masterfully. So yeah, good stuff from Chris. Track 6 goes to, this is the title track, it's Indigo. What you got for me to try? Baby, what you want? What you got for me to try? Should I hit it now? Pull up at the strip, fuck up a check, show them how I live, yeah. Blink on my neck, I got them on deck. They don't know you already have the green. Cause you nasty, babe. You do everything I like, but you classy, babe. Ain't no straight, that's my type. Oh, you nasty, babe. You do everything I like. Yeah, you nasty, babe. You nasty, baby. Frequency, freaky, and we in the bed. You're a piccolotti, body shawty, yeah. Oh, that's funny. I can spot your curves when I'm infrared. Love it to me, baby, open my third eye. That's my baby, she wants. She my little Chico. When I'm with her, we go out of my life. Where she goes, now wherever I go, I look around and the colors so bright. Green rolled up in leaves, yellow mood ring, purple light like a beam. I dream indigo. Baby, what you wanna do tonight? I stop believing we don't die. So many questions, don't know why. When I'm with you, I feel alive. wow, this was such an amazing opener. I think Chris ticks off all the boxes. So there are a lot of things that goes on in Indigo. First off, he names all the colors of tracks that he would mention further within the project. So there was a lot of foreshadowing going on with green rolled up in them leaves, mentioning emerald, yellow mood ring, purple eyed like a beam, that would be indigo. He dreams in, you know? I think the only track he doesn't mention in color was red. And further down in the album, we realized that he was singing that he didn't want to see red, so which is why I think he doesn't mention it on the track Indigo. So yeah, like all in all, Indigo is really a great opener, a really solid track. And another track produced by OG Parker where I think he plays. I think Scott Storch also has production credit, so I think they balance each other out, but they balance each other out pretty well. Columbia, this is Houston, AOS, over. Can I, wait, can I, should I, rewind, just remind me that I'm down, knocked out, in the short, yeah, I should've put all the red highlights from the beginning, you right, baby, yes I know you better, got nobody else, man, if you stay away from me too long, I might swim for you, keep your love from me, girl, I'm right. I'ma just keep going round and round in circles. Could you stop fucking with my head? Cause I see the purple, the red, my heart. Don't wanna see red. Don't wanna see don't wanna see I still love it. Don't want this breaking out a part of me. Could you, keep arguing always about the same thing. But you don't mean it, no, no. And I can't believe that you be so cold. You can't even keep a low flow. Don't wanna see. In all honesty, I've never heard a track that has let me emote so much anger before. Like this track, like gets me, or like it really gets me. Like Chris was in a different state of mind when this was written or recorded. Like I really do feel the anger he feels. I really do feel it. Like the lyricism on this, the guitar solo, the 2-chord loop. Like it just works. It all just works brilliantly. A masterful track, a 10 out of 10 from Chris. I really wish like these tracks were the ones that became singles because he really was doing some wonderful stuff on these type of tracks. Number 4 goes to Would you mind if I take my time and admire you? Baby, no, you won't have to do much. Ain't no pressure, we ain't gotta rush. Wanna know what's on your mind before we touch. So do you mind? I know plenty have in the past took advantage of. Oh, girl, I've been watching you, waiting for tonight. Take it out, leave it on. Oh, baby, I can't decide. So, baby, if I take my time, baby, we got all night. Baby, baby, let me know. This is number 4 because it's a masterful R&B track. Typical, standard sounding, traditional R&B of the 2010s. and when it relates to ballads or love making ballads. But this has a hint of sweetness to it where I think this could actually like be played at a wedding. Perhaps mine. Like this is actually a good track. It's a really good track, and I think Chris does extremely well on this. And he in this track he ups to not go for a whole bunch of harmonies, where he just kind of has one leading vocal throughout most of the track, which I think that was a great touch in detail from him. I know I might let you down every twice in a while, and I apologize. You got me back. This was a promotional single. I really wish this track got the attention it deserved because the music video, phenomenal. The track, the blend of R&B, hip hop, and Afrobeat together to create this mutant of a track was superbly done, and I don't think Chris got half the credit he truly deserves back when this track dropped. It was arguably the best track off Indigo, but I'm gonna put it at number 3 for a few reasons, including I think in the third verse it got a little too auto-tuned for me. It kind of took me out of the track, but otherwise really solid stuff from Chris, and this is the general direction I wish he headed more in certain tracks. Going to number 2, best collaboration on the album. So many feelings involved. We can't pretend I'll take it all. I wanna feel everything I want with you. I want you, babe. Ooh, that I can't lie. I want you, babe. We could and we should just come together. You and I, it's alright, it's perfect timing. You've been waiting, and I'm anxious for you to dive in. Me too. I'm doing for you what I wouldn't do for anybody. So you might come together. We should come together, baby. Please come. Oh, so don't make me wait. We on the same page, you know. There's literally nothing to say about this track. Absolute perfection. Zero complaints needed to be a single. Chris really fumbled on this one. Really fumbled on this one. This needed to be the single. This needed to be the single, Chris. He really needs better people on his team, bro. Track, well, number 1. I don't know what he was smoking when they made this, but space for me. I never felt love, but it feels like I'm fine. you got niggas on your line calling, but niggas never gon' put that out there. I can't say sorry enough. I can't go back in time for you. I know everything we love, but you can make it like I believe you. I can't say sorry enough. Show me I wanna love you. Show me I wanna love you. I can't say sorry enough. Show me I wanna love you. Show me I wanna love you. Oh, y'all hear that sax? Shawty, I wanna fix it. Anything and everything, whatever you tell me, baby, I'll be with it. Need somebody else who got you, saying things when I'm up in it. Tell them girls it's with you, go ahead and mind your business, yeah. Say you need, oh, baby, tell me what you want. I done done about everything, baby, all this night to me. Ooh, let me find the remedy. It's clear that you're not over me. It's clear that I'm not over you. How many times would it take for me to say I'm sorry to you, baby? I can't say sorry enough. I can't go back in time. To start, the saxophone that's harmonizing with him throughout the entire track, 10 out of 10. The vocals, 10 out of 10. Did you all hear those high notes on the breakdown? Amazing. The writing, superb. Like, the writing on this track is actually really good. Like, really good. The sample. I've never thought a nigga would have sampled grinding, a hardcore hip hop beat, and turn it into an R&B ballad per se. The additional studio kicks with the 808. How did they come up with the idea for this track? Let's take the grinding beat, let's throw a sax on it, let's add a 4-chord loop, 2 majors, 2 minors, and it works. Chris was really on something when they made this, yo. Like, this track should have gone #1 in the world. Like, this should have been like a 10 times platinum track. How did this not become a single? How has Chris never actually performed this? Has he ever performed Sorry Enough? I need to check that out. I don't think he has. But yeah, that's #1 for me. So we have reached a section of the video where I'll just quickly go through the track list and give you my thoughts on each track individually. Track 1 would have been Indigo. Back to Love, also in the top 10. Come Together, also in the top 10. Temporary Lover. Okay, so this is actually a really fun track. It's quite a bit repetitive with the okay, but I think Lil Jon really compliments Chris and he adds nice little 2000 crumb type style to it with his ad-libs, so I think it works. I think the track is fun, and when you get into the verses, I think Chris adds a lot more to it, context-wise, into thanking this person. Oh, also I do like the sample of I wanna thank you, Heavenly Father. I think it was a nice touch, and I do like the tempo switches throughout the track. Emerald was probably like a 7 out of 10 track. I do like the vision artistically of adding Juicy J and Juvenile to the track and changing the beat. Throughout this album, there were a lot of beat switches, tempo switches, so I think it was ambitious, but I don't think it was like expertly done. Red in the top 10. All I Want, I have mixed feelings about this track. I feel like I don't think Tyga added much to the track. Like a 6 out of 10 track. It's very possible. Personally, I would not mind if it was not on the album. Need a Stack. I think Joyner Lucas totally bodied this track. I think Lil Wayne's verse was one of his more just by the numbers verse. like a twerk anthem, a club party track. Personally, wouldn't mind if it wasn't on the album either. Wobble Up comes next. It's totally forgettable. Not my cup of tea. I think I do like G-Eazy's verse though. And Nicki does her thing. Chris also does his thing, but he's also obnoxiously overtly sexual and vulgar on the track, so it's not really for me. Heat comes next. At first I didn't really like Heat, to be honest. But then when you hear that airy piano loop, and then so it's like two things. You have this keyboard loop, then you have these piano chords. I think it's like a 3-chord loop, and then we have some ad libs and background vocals from Tank, and then Chris over top. I think it works. The double beat drops. Gonna actually flow smoothly on the track. Girl of My Dreams comes next. Guidance also. Natural Disaster slash Aura. This track works. This track works. It totally works. Natural Disaster speaks of a whole bunch of turmoil, while Aura is this peaceful bliss. So it's like two ends of a relationship. Natural Disaster, it speaks of all the hardships that they have had to face. And then Aura, it has this guitar loop being played backwards, and it's actually quite angelic. So I do like the juxtaposition between both tracks. So Natural Disaster slash Aura is a 5-minute track that's totally worth a listen. Don't check on me, I've told you guys. Sorry enough. I've also spoken about Juice. Is this pop Afrobeat link up, and it works. He had some Jamaican lines throughout the track talking about rude boy and so forth, and I think it works. He has some really great high notes on this, and this track is all in all really done well. Actually seen him perform this, superb. Like the choreography was top notch. You Like That is one of the few straight up standard pop tracks on this album. It's a piano pop track, a 3-chord loop. I think it's in the key of B flat, and it works. Waters already. Take a Risk. I have mixed feelings about Take a Risk. It's, for one, it's a very chaotic song, especially when you get to the hook, and then the verses have this island vibe going on, where I don't necessarily like the way it all comes together. Lurkin. Lurkin is actually really good. So just like Chris's version of a dancehall track, it features twirlings, and I think they both play off each other quite well. That groovy bass line is actually, it's actually the same bass line that you would find in Michael Jackson's Dirty Diana. The only thing is it's a different key, but it's like Dirty Diana made into dancehall, if we're being totally honest. So it totally works. Issues slash acting. In part 1, he's saying he has trust issues in this relationship and he cannot totally trust this person, and it makes him feel a bit insecure about where things are going. While in acting, clearly does not trust this person, but he's saying it's totally fine. Like, he's saying like, you don't need to pretend with me. I know what you're about and I'm fine with it. So it's the same idea of trust. He looks at it from two different sides. So yeah, I like that. Personally, I prefer Trust Issues. The portion of Trust Issues where he's going in and out of his falsetto and then doing some low notes. I think Says the Gemini has some vocals, has an uncredited verse on it also. Cheetah, kind of forgettable. I'm not a big fan of Cheetah, if I'm being honest. So that's just where I'm at. Undecided, I've spoken to that. No Judgment has a great, uplifting, pretty piano progression, but then by the time the hi-hats come in, I just kind of think it doesn't work for me. Side Nigga. Okay, so this track is what do I say? This track is fun. It's a really fun listen. It's groovy. There's no other track on the album that's quite sounds like Side Nigga. I think there's a lot of sarcasm in it, with him not actually being comfortable with what the role he plays within this relationship, but he plays it off to say she ain't mine and he's a side nigga of the year. Throw It Back samples Alia. Totally forgettable. This is not a good track. On Me, superb listen. I've spoken on it. Sexy with Trey Songz, arguably the worst track on the album. This just does not work. There's no redeeming quality of this song. Absolutely none. Early 2K with Tank. It's a pretty good by the numbers track. It has a lot of 2000 references, Dear God is also another track that I think suits the album. It works well. It's one of the slower tracks in the key of C sharp, and he's basically writing a letter to God about his personal problems. Part of the plan, another track where he speaks to his personal affairs. The album ends with Play Catch Up. I think Play Catch Up did not need to end the album. I think Part of the Plan could have been the closer, but Play Catch Up is a good listen. It's a fun listen, but it also not something that I keep going back to personally. So the big issue with Indigo is length. And I don't say that as some random listener. I say that as a person who's listened 57 tracks from Chris. The issue with length on Indigo is disc 1, so the first 15 tracks were almost perfection, and then by the time you get to disc 2, there were a lot of skippable moments. There were a lot of tracks that seemed like filler and didn't actually serve to the greater purpose of what the body of work was supposed to be. I think if he could have just taken a few of the tracks that were on disc 2 and switched them out for the tracks on disc 1, like the 4 or 3 tracks on this one that weren't like up to par with the others, I think it would have been a perfect album. But as is, I think disc 1 is almost perfect and disc 2 is quite forgettable. And that was the issue with Indigo, the album. No, it's one of Chris's most successful. I think it has over 1.6 billion streams on Spotify, which makes it his most streamed album on the platform. I know it's also his third #1 album on the Billboard 200, so very successful album. I just think if he had gone for quality over quantity again, this would have also been up there with some of his other classics. So